How do you end up at a yogurt shop, you and your friends, and you're chilling, you're not bothering nobody, you're doing your thing, and then all of a sudden it is reported that you are brutally decapitated? You're laughing and talking with some friends, young ladies at that, just having fun, living life, not even realizing what's right around the corner. December 1991, four young girls end up cold dead in a cold case. How does it happen? How nobody knows? How does it end up being a cold case? How do four young girls end up in a yogurt shop and no one knows nothing? How does this become a cold case? Let's tap in a little bit into this. I want to say unto my TCLN network, we are living in times, not the end times like people would have you to believe, but we have long been living in times where you have to be careful of your environments, careful of the people you hang around, careful of the lives that you choose to live, and most of all, careful of who, what, when, where, and why as you deal with your life every single day, not just in America, but in the world abroad. You have to even be careful of the things that you watch and the things that you entertain, and even careful of the people that you call friends and even family. So let's jump into this case about four young girls, Austin, Texas, December 1991. Let's go.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top. Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always
Four teenage young ladies, and I'm going to name them off to you. Amy Ayers, 13. Eliza Thomas, 17. Jennifer Harbinson, 17. And Sarah Harbison, 15. How do four young girls end up in a yogurt shop and it ends up a cold case? How is it that no one knows? Did someone know? Did they not know? Are they just forgotten? Or are they remembered today in Austin, Texas? Located in North Austin. And as these young ladies were sitting down to have their yogurt or whatever the case may have been, I was not there, but a fire reportedly broke out, right? So let me read to you what the reports say. Firefighters extinguished the blaze and discovered charred bodies. All had suffered shootings, and at least one had been sexually assaulted. The remaining three were bound and gagged. Witnesses reported seeing two men acting furtively. In the shop earlier, the store's front door was locked or afterward, but a rear door was found open, suggesting that the attackers escaped that way. So, guys, my question is this. How is it that people of that age are in a shop, whether it's daytime or nighttime, and no particular adults are around to even monitor and watch after these girls, right? My question is this. The world is constantly monitoring you. The world is constantly watching you, everything you do. If you're trying to achieve something, the world is watching you. If you are reading something, the world is watching what you're reading. If you're trying to build a business, the world is watching what you're building. If you're trying to make friendships, the world is monitoring you to see who you're trying to connect to. And my question is that why is it in our world people are good at monitoring others' lives and monitoring what other people are doing, and they seem to always miss the boat, right? And this is for the monitors, the people who feel that they have a right to watch you and to look at you and to study everything you do so they can know everything that they need to know about you. And I often think to myself, what if they took that same energy and was monitoring the bad things of this lifetime? If they were so busy monitoring people who are doing wrong, monitoring people who are plotting in the earth, monitoring conversations that are behind closed doors, what if people was taking that type of energy? There would be no molested babies. There would be nobody falsely put into jails. There would be no one being set up so they can have their businesses robbed. If people took that same energy to monitor what's important, think about how many lives you could really save. I just wanted to add that in because the world is good at looking at every single thing that people do, watching what you're doing, watching what you're studying, watching where you're trying to go in life, watching who you're trying to go with, watching what you're trying to connect with. And they're good at trying to take everything away from you and hold you down. But just think if they took that same energy and monitored a world that was doing wrong, how many lives could they really save? If somebody was really monitoring these young girls as hard as they monitor your life, these young girls would not be deceased. Somebody would have saved the day. Somebody would have made a call. Somebody would have did a fight. Somebody, you know how people got all this gang stalking that be going on? If people was busy monitoring and gang stalking on the bad people of this earth, instead of trying to hold good people down, then there would be a lot of lives saved in this world, wouldn't it? I digress and I regress. Let's get back to the thing. Investigation and aftermath. The initial suspects included Maurice Pierce and others. Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott were convicted several years later, but all convictions were overturned by a 2009 due to insufficient evidence. 2008, DNA testing identified a male genetic profile still in a federal database. No definitive match has yet emerged, and over decades, the case has remained unsolved and continues to deeply affect the Austin community. I really want us to understand that there's been a lot of talk about gang stalking, and there's been a lot of talk about people harassing people and trying to keep people down. And there's been a lot of talk about people watching people and people monitoring people. And there's been all this talk on the internet, right? And we know that it's happening. Now, remember back in the day, they used to label us as psychotic if we tried to speak up. So a lot of people kept their mouths closed because remember, we didn't have camera phones. We didn't have video or recordings or a lot of stuff we just didn't have. You understand what I'm saying? And so how could you prove that these things was happening when there would be 12 people in one of you and then people would call you a liar? And they've gotten more savvy because now they learn how to attack you in body and spirit and keep their mouths closed while they're attacking you and projecting to you. And then if you make noise, you consider to be the bad person. You consider to be the troublemaker. I said all that to say, is this world that we live in, I'm going to say it like Jeffrey Dahmer said it some years and years ago when he was sitting before the courts. And they asked Jeffrey Dahmer, they said, Dahmer, do you think if you would have gotten counseling that this could have prevented that? He said, absolutely not. He said, no, I don't think that at all. He said, they said, Jeffrey, do you think that if your parents would have been different and if these things would have been different and you didn't go through what you went through, do you think that you would have did all of that? Jeffrey said, no, I still would have done it. They said, well, let's look at porn, Jeffrey. They said, do you think that the porn enticed you to do these things? Or do you think it was the effect of the porn? And Jeffrey said, well, he said, no. He said, I did what I did and I like to do what I do. He said, the porn just kind of stoked it a little bit. He said, but it wasn't the reason. And then they allowed Jeffrey Dahmer to speak. And I said to myself, this has to be one of the most honest criminals that I have ever seen on the face of the earth. Because some people who are accused of crimes, they didn't necessarily do them. They was either influenced to do them because they was trying to set them up, or because they got set up, or they were just ignorant doing stuff that they didn't know that would cost them a penalty. But Jeffrey Dahmer said something that struck me that I have never forgotten and that's etched in my conscience. Jeffrey Dahmer said, let me tell you something. He said, I exist and there are people like me that exist. And he was not talking about eating black men and all this kind of stuff. And he said, we are murderers. He said, and there is a whole bunch of us in the earth. He said, and if y'all don't learn this lesson, then you'll never learn. I said, I know this man didn't just say this, but we all know that, don't we? So why come the people who are always monitoring you, always watching you, always looking at you, always doing this and this and that, can't use that same ability to go monitor and save the day? For those 4 young ladies, I would not lie on their grave no more than I lie about suicide. Suicide is not suicide. They did not self-terminate themselves. They were influenced and they were traumatized and they murdered them. And I said, one thing I will not do is I will not walk the face of this earth. I've never had anyone in my family commit suicide or myself, but I know what those people have been through. And I refuse to lie on the graveyards of people who was taken all too soon because a jealous, envious, hateful world tormented them and bullied them. And they went through things that were so deep within them. And people say, well, they didn't cry. Yes, they did cry out. You called them crazy. Yes, they did cry out. You wanted to put them on psych meds. Yes, they did cry out. You didn't want to hear them. And let me give you an example. One time I was in Dallas in my hometown, and I was in a tunnel, an underground tunnel. And I was sitting there and I was working on a screenplay. And I used to be in that tunnel because it was quiet in that tunnel. The only time it was noisy is when people would come through to ride the train. And when you're going through homelessness, sometimes you need quietness from the noise. And one time this couple came through there and they had a small child. And it looked like something out of the Twilight Zone. It looked like something that out of the 1921. When I say there are some of the weirdest things that go on in our world, it really is. It looked like something out of 1921. They were dressed like it. They looked like it. And I remember as they walked down in the tunnel, I was observing. And you know what they said? The little kid looks back, and then the man says, "You're going nowhere." And the whole family looks, right? And also, I want to say this, and I want you to know this. I lived in Dallas the majority of my life. I've lived in Texas the majority of my life. I do not think that those girls died by accident. I think there are people who know what happened. When I've been through the things that I've been through in the state of Texas, and I love my hometown. I don't hate my hometown. You know how some people move from their hometown and they feel like I gotta get away because I hate it. I don't hate where I come from. I never thought to move because of that reason. I don't hate where I come from. But I suffered a lot in the United States of America, and a lot of other people did too. Because a lot of people think that death has to do with something physical. They think that death has to do with someone killing you or stabbing you, or you dying of some type of natural causes. There are people in this world, when Jeffrey Dahmer said that there are people that are like me, and it's a whole bunch of us, many of us, and we murder. He wasn't talking about eating bodies and all that kind of stuff that he was doing. Once you understand that it's really true that the thief comes but to steal, kill, and destroy. Once you understand that principle, then you will understand why it's called the thief. You will understand why it's called, or why it's stated, that the thief comes but to steal, to kill, and destroy. It didn't say and or. It ranked them all together. Kill, steal, and destroy. That is not just a biblical term, by the way. Remember, Bibles took things from other references to create their Bibles. You do understand that, right? So this has been something long known amongst the earth. So when Jeffrey Dahmer said, there are many of us, I want you to sit back and I want you to analyze your life. And I want you to remember all of the stories that you've been telling on YouTube. You've been telling your life, and that people deemed you, or they deemed you crazy or psychotic or paranoid or whatever they wanted to say about you. And I want you to take those stories into consideration. And I want you to really understand, when we look at things like this happening, and you look at the attacks on your life and the attempted murders on your life, and the witchcraft that people tried to practice against you, and the sorceries and the harms, and try to destroy you, even the rituals and the sacrifices of homelessness and hurt and pain, and what they call the humiliation rituals, and you think about all of your life, I want to ask you this one question. Do you really believe that these four young ladies just up and was terminated like that, the way that they were, and that no one knew? That no one in the world knew, and that this could just not be solved? I beg to differ. I don't have all the answers, and I wouldn't pretend to. I don't even know if the original people that they called guilty was guilty or not. I wasn't there. I don't know the story. I'm just going by what they say. Some of this came from CBS News. Some of it comes from The Guardian. That's all I know. You understand? But let me tell you what I do know. I do know that it wasn't an accident. I do know that somebody knows something. There's too many people that watch us, spy on us, look at everything we do, plot, scheme, scam, and do whatever to try to make sure that we don't become our best. So there's no way that no one would know anything about these young ladies. To these young ladies, I don't have the answers for you. I don't know nothing about your life or who you was or where you truly came from. All I know is that when I tell the story, I was going to say that somebody knows, darling. I don't know about the rest in peace slogan, but I do know about this. Whatever was done to you, nobody ever really got away. And that somebody in this world knows. And that's what I have to say. Now, there is a 4-part documentary, a new HBO series documentary that is going to be, it's out as of August 3rd, 2025. It was made by a local filmmaker in Austin, and her name is Margaret Brown. So if you guys are interested in that story, make sure that you go check that story out. The series take a deeply empathetic and investigative approach centering on survivors, families, investigators like John Jones and Paul Johnson, journalists and legal experts, and it critically examines coerced confessions, flawed police work, and the emotional aftermath. It is structured as a thoughtful exploration rather than a sensational true crime. And the series also critiques systemic failures and depicts Austin's collective memory of tragedy. So, guys, you may want to go check that out. That's from The Guardian. But the series is made, like I said, by a local filmmaker. Her name is Margaret Brown. And it is a HBO and a HBO Max series. So, guys, you may want to check that out if you kind of want to look into something like that, especially for you crime people. You know, some of y'all love crime, honey. You love crime stories. So that would be up your alley, right? Just make sure you keep the compassion with the crime and the crime with the compassion. There are so many people that have been terminated that should not have been terminated. I'm going to say something that may rattle some fluffles or fluffle some feathers and tethers. Why is it that some of the most corrupt people on the face of the earth tend to just live out their lives and torture people and terminate people while some good souls are just decapitated? And please don't give me the tagline that Jesus took them home. Jesus had no parts of someone being brutally murdered. That came from the hearts of whoever that was. We got to stop saying that Jesus took people home. That's a ritual. Ain't no Jesus did all that. And ain't no Jesus, I would assume that if it was a good God, would want something like that bad to happen to people like that. That's just my take. You don't have to agree with me, but that's my take. So to end it off, the crime was very, very brutal and it was bizarre. Okay? And that's it, guys. That's it. That's what I have to say on that. Why is it that we are so monitored? We're so tracked. We're so looked upon as we got to stop them. We have to block them. And we're not even living a wrong life. We're just trying to live our best lives. But then these same people can't use that same energy to fight crime, to do what's right, to save lives. You guys have a great one, okay? To those 4 young ladies, I knew nothing about you, but I refuse to say that God took you home, because of course there's no God that would want you to be harmed like that. Blessings to you all. Bye. I want to say a little something also. I came across this lady some few years back when I made my first little short film. I was in Los Angeles and I said, I want to go back to my hometown because I want to put some people on the map and I want to write a very, very good script. And then I want to find actors and find people, and I want people to have exposure in my hometown. Unfortunately, you can have great thoughts and you can have beautiful thoughts, but the world doesn't think like that. The world thinks about how it can take advantage of you and bring itself up, not how it can work with you, but how it can use you to bring itself up. But I wouldn't know this until after I went back, right? Because I made one in Dallas, and then I said, you know what? If I can do it in Dallas and it screamed at the big Texas theater, I said, let me go see if I can do it in Los Angeles. Because I know that that's a competitive pool. And then if I can do it there, I can do it anywhere. But anyway, I said all that to say, I came across this lady one time. I won't say her name. And the reason why I won't say her name is because I want to respect what happened to her daughter. So anyway, we worked on a project together, right? And as we worked on this project together, I'm a big discerner and a big observer. I discern and I observe. I do. Because there's so many things going on in our world that, guys, you just have to be careful. Everybody walking into your life ain't right. Some people come along for the ride. Some people come along to kill that ride. Either way, they all users. You understand what I'm saying? Except those who are not. Now, I want you to understand this one thing. As we worked on this project together, I'm observing her children. One is older. To me, that tends to be the one that's, you know what I'm saying, that's a little bit on the dark side. I could see that in her. And then I saw the other two, which was the son and the daughter. And I worked with her plenty of days, not just one time. And I said, and I knew that this girl had a good spirit. I knew this about her. You know, you can pick up on it. I knew she had a good spirit, not just a faker, but she was very manable, very respectable, had no ill will thoughts in her. You can pick up on people energy when they snogging at you, when something ain't right. You know, you can pick up on people all day long trying to fool you, right? So after we worked on the project, everybody did the project. Some time later, I end up getting some information that the baby girl is gone. I said, what? I'm in shock. I said, what happened? So come to find out, her and her friend had started a business. I don't know if you call it a business or organization, but anyway, they started this thing, right? And they were at their school. And so they created this whole little program. And the program was to be for the youth at the school to eat better, live better, think better, do better, right? And her friend girl was over the program. They was over the thing, and they put it together, and it was just awesome, right? Little girls living out their dreams, haven't even got into their adult years yet. And they plotted a car wreck and terminated them. Y'all, that's exactly what happened. You said, well, I became, why you just wouldn't call it an accident? Sweetheart, there is no such thing as accidents. When I was a young girl, people would hit me with cars to try to impair me. And I used to think that they were accidents because that's what people would say. When I got older and people saw me trying to produce, or I'm sorry, not produce, but people saw me trying to go after dreams and goals, what do? They would threaten to hit you with a car. They would speak things over you called spells to try to get you to die in car wrecks. That's why I know that nothing is an accident. And I like to lost myself when that happened. Listen, I didn't even know them that well, but I knew deeply what had happened. And I like to lost myself. And I couldn't talk to the mother because when you're in religion, you tend to like don't see it straight all the time. I'm not knocking religion, but you don't. And so the mother says, well, God took, I said, I couldn't even talk to her. I said, if I talk to her, I'm going to probably say something that's going to hurt because the truth hurts. And what I wanted to say to the woman is that, woman, you know your child was murdered. You know these young girls was murdered. Why in the world would you say that about a God. They're doing good, they're living good, they're not harming anyone. And why would this be done to them when there are so many bad children in the earth that hurt people and do evil to people? And you want to act like that a God did this. There's no God that done this. And if I would have said that to her, not that she would, because she don't have that kind of disposition where she would just hate you or be mad like that. But I knew that I couldn't say that to her. But I also knew that I had to depart from her because I couldn't listen to that type of talk. I am a reality, truthful based person. I can't listen to that. And I recognized that two beautiful young girls were taken out who was in the process of achieving a dream, and jealousy and envy plotted their end. I want you guys to be careful out here and stay prayerful. Don't stay religious, stay prayerful, and stay hindsight. You be blessed.